John C. Maxwell is a #1 New York Times bestselling author, speaker, coach, and leader who has sold more than 33 million books in 50 languages. He's been called the #1 leader in business, the most influential expert of business leadership in the world. His organizations, the John Maxwell Company, Equip, and the John Maxwell Leadership Foundation have translated his teachings into over 70 languages and helped equip millions of men and women to become biblically trained pastors, bring the Word of God and His salvation to the underserved world. John Maxwell was born in Garden City, Michigan. He followed his father into the ministry, and he is an ordained minister in the Wesleyan Church. He obtained his doctorate from Fuller Theological Seminary. He's the recipient of the Horatio Alger Award and the Mother Teresa Prize for Global Peace. John Maxwell influences Fortune's 500 CEOs, the presidents of nations, entrepreneurs of the world, and he plays a mean game of golf, which he loves dearly. He is married way above his pay grade to his one and only love, Margaret. As a side note, I heard John Maxwell speak at Promise Keepers in 1994. Later, thanks to Sam Moore at Thomas Nelson, I had lunch with John back on July 1st, 1998. I'm convinced with my whole heart that God gives me a nudge, and He guides my hand in ways I never see coming, and I can't predict it. 2 of those nudges are sitting at my table today. I will tell you with absolute certainty that Amy Grant was much more receptive to that nudge than was John Maxwell. In 1998, when I told John I was worried about his health, I reached over and I gave him my business card with my cell phone number on it. He was, to say the least, skeptical. He didn't see any way I could do anything for him being in Atlanta and me being in Nashville, Tennessee. 6 months later, at 2 o'clock in the morning, that business card and phone number saved his life. He will tell you the rest of the story, but for now, let me introduce to scouts, gentlemen, ladies, and other guests, our keynote speaker, my friend, Mr. John C. Maxwell.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and you're exactly right, Dr. Cage. You did save my life. We had our Christmas party at Turner Field I have 7 companies, and we just finished the evening, and I laid on the floor and had a heart attack. They sent me to a hospital in Atlanta that was really more fit for gunshot wounds and knife fights than for somebody that had a heart issue. They could not do a heart cath. So my executive assistant, Linda, remembered the phone number and called him. He put an A-team at Emory Hospital together for me, literally sent a cardiologist to assist me from moving from one hospital to the other, and there they literally that night saved my life, and 24 years later, I am here today, and Dr. Cage, I'm very grateful. You are a tremendous man and a tremendous friend and a tremendous doctor. The scouting life so beautifully prepares kids for life. And before I just talk to you about why I think we're here today and why it's so wonderful to be a part of this occasion, I would just like to read one thing to you about life. It's humorous. But you see, at 75, I've discovered something about 10 years ago. At 65, you just get wisdom, okay? You do. If you're under 65, you're just not there yet. It's okay. God has an incredible sense of humor. You know, when you're young, He gives you energy with no wisdom. Then you get wisdom and no energy. But I'm going to read this to you, and you're just going to understand life like you've never understood it before. In fact, before I read it to you, look at your neighbor and say, you're about to understand life. Go ahead and tell him that, would you please? Okay. In fact, look at the person you just said that to and said, why do you think I brought you here? Here we go. On the first day, God created the dog. God said, sit all day by the door of your house and bark at anyone that comes by. I'm going to give you a lifespan of 20 years. The dog said, that's too long to be barking. Give me 10 years and I'll give you back the other 10. And God agreed. So on the second day, God created the monkey. God said, entertain people, do monkey tricks, make them laugh. I'm going to give you a 20-year lifespan. The monkey said, how boring. Monkey tricks for 20 years? I don't think so. The dog gave you back 10 years. That's what I'll do too, okay? And God agreed. So on the third day, God created the cow. God said, you must go out in the field with the farmer all day long, suffer under the sun, have calves, give milk to support the farmer. I'm going to give you a lifespan of 60 years. The cow said, that's kind of a tough life you want me to lead for 60 years. Let me have 20. I'll give you back the other 40. Again, God agreed. So on the fourth day, God created man. God said, eat, sleep, please, marry, enjoy your life. I'm going to give you 20 years. The man said, what? Only 20 years? I'll tell you what, I'll make 20 and add the 40 the cow gave you back, and the 10 the monkey gave you back, and the 10 the dog gave you back. That makes 80, okay? And God said, okay, you've got a deal. So that is why the first 20 years of our lives, we eat, sleep, play, enjoy ourselves. For the next 40 years, we slave in the sun to support our family. For the next 10 years, we do monkey tricks to entertain the grandchildren. And for the last 10 years, we just sit on the front porch and we bark at everybody that goes by. You've just had life explained to you. Be prepared is the Scout motto. And I would like to just take that phrase and talk about it for a few moments. John Wooden was a wonderful friend and a mentor of mine for many years. And he had a statement that was powerful. He would say, John, when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. And when I think of the Scout motto today, I think that's exactly what you're doing. By your sponsorship, by your support, by your encouragement in this incredible program, you're helping kids be prepared when opportunity really comes. In fact, the last thing that John Wooden did before he passed away, I wrote a book called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And it asked to do the forward for the book. And so he literally, the weekend before he passed away, went in the hospital and he wrote the forward of that book. But often in our discussions and conversations in mentoring times, we would talk about the fact that so many times people are unprepared for the opportunity that comes their way, and they miss it. But preparation is an incredible asset in a person's life. And as I think of scouting, and I think of you that are friends of Scouts today, I think that you have done an exceptional job in preparing them in many ways, but I would like to talk briefly about three. And the first is leadership. Of course, I would talk about leadership. That's my passion, that's my life, that's my love. My life was changed in the 20s when I came to the conclusion that everything rises and falls on leadership. The day that I was convinced of that, I had my mission in life. That was to learn to be the best leader I possibly could be, to teach leadership, to write about leadership, to literally make my whole life an understanding of what happens when people have good leaders and what happens when they have bad leaders. On our national and international stage today, we are seeing a graphic example of what happens when countries have good leadership and when countries have bad leadership. In fact, the statement that everything rises and falls on leadership just began to be the passion and the mission of my heart. That if I could somehow teach people how to lead better, if I could help people increase their leadership skills, all of a sudden, the world would be a better place to live. So when I talk about the fact that everything rises on leadership, I'm talking specifically about two things. Leadership is good for people when the leader has developed competent leadership skills. In other words, they really know how to lead well. And secondly, when that leader has good values. And you cannot separate the two. I've known great leaders who had tremendous leadership competency, but they had poor values. You see, when you have great leadership skills, but you have poor values, instead of helping people and adding value to them, you begin to manipulate them. And manipulating is always wrong in leadership because it moves people for personal advantage, not for the advantage of others. And so when I began to talk about and teach and write about leadership, I was committed to teaching leadership skills. My nonprofit organization has trained over 6 million leaders in every country of the world. It's a passion of mine to teach people how to be competent in their leadership skills. I have companies that do that. But it's just as important to understand that good values are essential to that leadership. In a couple moments, I'll come to that. But everything rises and falls on leadership. And in the scouting world, you are already preparing leaders because they practice leadership. You see, the way that we learn to lead is more than just understanding or reading a book. The way that we learn to lead is by practicing leadership. And when they're on their scouting ventures, as they practice these leadership skills, it just gets them ready because there will be a day, as Winston Churchill said, there is a day in every person and every leader's life when the opportunity comes. He said, the question is not, will the opportunity come? The question is, will we be prepared for the opportunity? In leadership, well, in my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, I talk about the law of the lid, L-I-D, the law of the lid. It's a simple law. It just simply says how well you lead determines how well you succeed. That's a fact. Let me visually just give this to you so that we can understand how it works in the scouting world. If I'm an average leader, from a 1 to a 10, let's say I'm a 5. And if this hand right here represents my leadership lid, this is my competency, this is my skill set in leadership, I'm a 5. I'm average, I'm kind of in the middle. The fact is, if I'm a 5 as a leader, whatever organization, whatever team I have under me will come to the lid and it will go no higher. If I'm a 5 as a leader, whatever I lead will be a 4 or less. That's an absolute fact. There's no theory at all to that. Sometimes when I'm doing leadership conferences during a Q&A, somebody will ask a question, John, are leaders born? And whenever they ask me, are leaders born, I always give them the same answer. Of course they are. Think about that question. I've never met an unborn leader. Don't particularly want to either. Thank you very much. You see, what they're asking is, are there some leaders when they're born, they got it, and if you do, you go to the front of the line, and if you don't got it, you go to the back of the line. That's what they're asking. And what we've discovered is that leadership skills and leadership competencies can be taught. And what makes that beautiful is if you're a 5 as a leader, which puts a lid on what your organization is, when you grow and learn to develop your leadership and practice it, you can go from a 5 to a 6 to maybe a 7, perhaps an 8. And the moment that you lift your lid, all of a sudden, your team, your organization, your company, your business, whatever, can just absolutely fill that gap and grow. What you are doing in scouting is this. You're lifting the lid. You are lid lifters to kids who, when their day comes, their capacity, their potential will be so much greater because of you. In scouting, you not only prepare kids to be better leaders, you prepare them to have good values. If you can think back at 2000, in our country, we began to have corporate scandals. All I've got to do is say one word, and you're with me, Enron. I can still being remembered, I was called to New York City. Time Warner was my publisher at the time, and they asked me to write a book on business ethics because what was happening with the lack of trust in corporate America. So we sat down to a long dinner, and they said, John, we want you to really write a book on business ethics. And I said, well, I can't do that. And they said, why? And I said, because there's no such thing as business ethics. And they looked at me and said, what do you mean? Look what's happening in corporate America. What do you mean there's no such thing as business ethics? I said, well, what I mean is there's no such thing as business ethics. There's just ethics. You either got them or you don't. You can't compartmentalize ethics. And then they said, well, hey, okay, well, can you write a book on that? Publishers just love books. I said, I think I can. And I wrote literally a book on the golden rule. Treat others as you really would like to be treated yourself. It's a value. That was a life-changing moment for me in 2000 because it was at that moment that I began to understand as a leader the importance of values. And the importance of values far outweigh the importance of laws. You see, a law tells you what you're supposed to do, but a value allows you to be that person. A value is on the inside. And that's when I began to, in my leadership life, switch from not only training leaders, which we had that down pretty good, to helping the leaders become transformational. Because trained leaders are all about competencies that give people vision, but transformational leaders, that's all about the heart. It's all about the values. It's all about the character, all the wonderful things that these scouts at a very young age learn to embrace. And what we have discovered as we do transformation now in nations around the world, what we have discovered is that when people learn good values and they begin to live good values, they become more valuable. They become more valuable to themselves. They become more valuable to their family. They become more valuable to their community. They just become more valuable when they learn and live good values. And we're seeing it happen literally in countries around the world. We're in 5 countries now. We have 22 presidents of countries in line waiting for us to come in and teach those values because they're beginning to understand that you've got to be bigger on the inside before you can become bigger on the outside. You've got to become better on the inside before you can become better on the outside. That is an inside job. We also teach values to now millions of kids in public schools in other countries. It's in the curriculum. It's right alongside math or learning. I was just talking to the Secretary of Education from Guatemala, and she said to me, the teachers say within 3 weeks, these kids doing values in small groups, she said within 3 weeks, the teachers are saying they see a noticeable difference in the lives of the students. This is absolutely huge, what can happen. When we think of social media today, when we think of social media and where it is, and the desperate need kids have for validation, we have now proven through our services and surveys, we've now proven that when you have good values on the inside, don't miss this, when you have good values on the inside, you need less validation on the outside. And so when Scouts are learning these good values. What it is doing, it is building an inside character within them that becomes absolutely huge. There's one more preparation that you do in the scouting community that I just commend you for, and that is you teach these beautiful, beautiful kids all about significance. Tony George is a friend of mine. He owns the Indianapolis 500, and lots of times I would go up and talk to the racers or to the owners and kind of watch the race with him in a suite. One day we were having lunch right before the race was starting, and he said, "John, what's the difference between success and significance?" I said, "Tony, success is about me. Success is about my career, how many books I've written, how much money I have. It's all about my stuff. That's what success is all about." I said, "Significance is about others." Big difference. I know a lot of successful people that are very unhappy. Their act is all screwed up. Their life isn't together at all. Oh, they got the stuff. They're successful, but they're unhappy. I have never met a significant person, a person that lives their life for others. I have never met an unhappy, significant person. We're created to be our brother's keeper. You see, significance is all about giving and sharing and adding value and making a difference. I close with this. When I was very young, I received as a Christmas gift a book, and I've always loved to read. And as soon as I opened up the package, I saw the book, and the title on the outside of the book, it just grabbed hold of me because it was entitled, "The Greatest Story Ever Told." I looked at that book and I thought, wow, the greatest story ever told. I can hardly wait to read this. And I opened it up, and much to my surprise, as soon as I opened the book up, the pages, they were blank. There were no words. And I looked to the person who gave me the gift, and I said, "I don't understand. It says on the outside, the greatest story ever told, and on the inside, there are no words. The pages are blank." And she smiled and said, "Go to the front cover." And I pulled back the front cover, and she had written me a note, and the note said this: "John, your life is before you. You fill these pages with your words, your dreams, your hopes, matters dear to your heart." The next morning, I started on blank page number 1, and I wrote, "I want to make a difference." I was too young to know how I was going to make a difference, when I was going to make a difference. I didn't even know why I wanted to make a difference. I just knew I wanted to make a difference. And that book, The Greatest Story Ever Told, that she gave me, started me on my significance journey that I've never left. I'm still on it. And the reason I tell you that story is because every one of you here, you're giving every scout a book. And the pages are blank. But because of your investment in their life, because of your commitment to the values to which they stand for, you're giving every scout a book with blank pages. And they will write the greatest story ever told. And you will be the co-author. Thank you very much.
So, John, on behalf of Middle Tennessee Council, I'm honored to present you with a small token of our appreciation for your support of Scouting and for that amazing, inspirational talk you just gave us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.